Rick and Marty discover the treasure after months of drilling and scouring. On this island, the crew has been searching for the so-called treasure, and there appears to be a breakthrough. Marty, Lagina, and Rick have arrived at the money pit to assess the progress of the garden shaft probe drilling operation. After approximately 3 inches of drilling, they attained the desired depth. When they reached a depth of approximately 93 feet, they believed they had arrived at the precise location, absolutely perfect in every way. After reaching what is believed to be the approximate depth of the tunnel that leads directly west into the potential treasure zone, the most pressing questions now are whether or not they will be able to find the structure and whether or not they will be able to investigate what it may contain. They believed it was the last day on Earth. In addition, there was absolutely no uncertainty about it. They had to pack up their possessions because they would only be actively searching for approximately half a day. They decided to disassemble the parts and investigate further, today at the very least before sunset. They removed the rods and began cleaning out the file, while simultaneously placing everything in a container and evaluating the situation to determine what was visible. Oak Island most assuredly does not readily divulge her secrets. They were anxious to collect any and all information they could find and, if possible, determine what the piece of wood was that was buried at the bottom of the garden shaft. After drawing a blank, a team member was confident that he had struck wood on the northern side of the board, despite drawing a blank previously. He was able to access the tunnel despite not being directly struck by the bullet. Nevertheless, he was not directly struck by the gunfire. Then, they proposed that they could use it to project the tunnel's line if they simply approached it from the side. This occurred after they realized it was feasible. They had not yet conducted a bottom inspection to determine the precise location of the tunnel at this point. After donning their protective gear, they descended the shaft. Even if they had contemplated it, they never in their wildest imaginings could have predicted that this moment would occur. After so much time, it was almost as if they were reliving a childhood fantasy. Now, in an effort to excavate these treasures, they are venturing into the money pit's depths, putting themselves in the same predicament as those who have come before them for literally hundreds of years. Despite the fact that time is running out, this problem will not be resolved in the immediate future. It is likely that whatever was intended to be discovered in this shaft was set there deliberately to facilitate its discovery. At this time, they believed that utilizing a metal detector would be advantageous in some manner. They only had a small amount of time left, so they decided to ask an experienced team member to use metal detecting equipment and investigate the cavity to see what they could find. Finally, it appears that they may be getting closer to finding the actual treasure. The landscape gave the appearance of being from the Middle Ages. During the reign of the Templars, it was almost as if they were imprisoned in a confinement within a fortress. They were still attempting to determine what was in the hole, but they had a suspicion that it contained a large number of modern nails and wire. They were extremely fortunate to have the CTX 3030, which not only allowed them to discover this but also featured all the bells and sirens associated with distinguishing features. They made immediate contact with something, but it was not a target composed of non-ferrous materials. They speculated it could be gold, silver, or even copper, but could not be certain. Is it conceivable that they discovered traces of the fabled treasure that was supposedly buried on Oak Island's murky soil? The very bottom of the garden shaft, only a few feet below the surface of the ground. It's also conceivable that the signals are being sent through what is believed to be a tube that runs west towards the infant blob and is approximately 10 feet below the surface. It is a bittersweet moment because Dumas does not have the legal permits to extend the shaft deeper at this time of year, and they cannot risk the future of the project or the safety of their team by attempting to breach the bottom of the shaft to explore what could be dangerously unstable ground below the level of elation when they describe a non-ferrous hit. However, the discovery of a non-ferrous strike indicates the presence of a non-ferrous metal, which is cause for celebration. Dumas does not have the legal permissions to extend the shaft further at this time of the year, so the event is both thrilling and disappointing. At this time of year, the shaft can no longer be extended. It is extremely disheartening to realize that this objective cannot be achieved. Both the glacial tumulus system and the series of water-filled anhydrite holes that lie beneath Oak Island may be responsible for the periodic inundation of the pit. Oak Island is situated on top of a glacially formed tumulus system. Oak Island consists of a collection of glacial tumuli. This type of limestone is extremely susceptible to dissolution in the presence of water. Consequently, this process can result in the formation of caverns and other natural cavities. Near the excavation pit, bedrock may be encountered at depths spanning from 38 to 45 meters, 125 to 148 feet. People have been seeking for treasures and artifacts since the 18th century and have made numerous attempts to do so. The Holy Grail, Shakespearean manuscripts, pirate treasure, and the Ark of the Covenant are examples of the types of artifacts that have been suggested to be located on the island. In addition to the Holy Cross and the Holy Spire, it has been hypothesized that other objects exist on the island. According to a widely held theory, the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant were both interred on the island by the Knights Templar. Several items that were initially discovered on the island have progressively made their way to the island's surface over the years. Several of these objects have been subjected to carbon dating, and the results indicate that their ages span from the hundreds to the thousands of years. Enjoying this video so far? Have you yet subscribed? Be sure to do this and enable post notifications to be notified when the next discovery video becomes available. The Lagena brothers would almost certainly receive the preponderance of the wealth. The first piece of information we possess is that the treasure trove license encompasses the current Oak Island search being conducted by the Lagena brothers. This government regulation stipulates the new season is here. Lagena brother will be back to start a new excavation session in November.
10 years ago, we never would have anticipated going underground in the money pit.
What we're seeing is high-density anomaly below the surface of the money pit.
Yep. Will this be the most exciting historical season yet? The stage is set because the last 3 biggest finds from Season 10 have already taken the world by storm.
We need to get to the bottom of the garden shaft. Could be the offset chamber that we seek.
For people across the globe, the belief that they will finally solve a 228-year-old treasure mystery has never been higher. To start off, I am going to begin with analyzing the Lot 5 barter token. A couple of months after Gary found the Roman coin with Rick, he and Jack Begley fared well once again with a curious, non-ferrous target. But what did they find this time? A lead barter token. It was most likely used as a form of currency several centuries ago, but it wasn't made of silver or gold. But let me emphasize one thing here again. Lead artifacts found on Oak Island have sometimes proven to be the greatest clues in helping to solve the mystery. Meanwhile, when archaeometallurgist Emma Colligan analyzed the token, her initial take on its possible origin was more than compelling. But when chemist Dr. Chris McFarland conducted isotope testing on the lead, his laser-focused findings made for an unbelievable moment. According to my judgment and analysis, the object was relatively easy to identify because it was flat, a favorable characteristic for analysis. Yet, it wouldn't have been a piece of cake because it had a very thick, altered crust on it, indicating that it had been submerged for quite some time. Without a doubt, it has endured significant environmental changes over the years. Now hear this out.
The biggest result is that isotopically, it looks very similar to the cross.
No way. I wasn't expecting that.
The Lot 5 token was an exact compositional match to the 14th century lead cross, Signa Island, and the soil in the vicinity provided the chemicals. In its aftermath, I think that the fusion of these materials created the pink blob. Meanwhile, Marty Lagina made light of the possibility that the island's secret would be kept in a little plastic bottle, despite 200 years of extensive expenditure and effort. In the war room, the men were gathered, and Marty demanded to know about the gold. Fortunately, he didn't let them down. And surprisingly, there is more good news. Dr. Dred Michel, a hydrogeologist, said that the concealed gold was located only a short distance from the sea. According to my calculations, it is between 80 and 110 feet deep. This is also consistent with earlier researchers who discovered an engraved stone at a height of 90 feet, or around the same level. It was thought the marking indicated the location of a hidden treasure. Meanwhile, Rick and Marty carried on with their first descent into the garden shaft. Faithful acorns know that the genesis of what would become the Curse of Oak Island began when Rick Lagena was just 11 years old, growing up in northern Michigan. There, he read a 5-page story in the Reader's Digest entitled Oak Island's Mysterious Money Pit. That one brief write-up of the fabled treasure pit and the questions about what it might contain would captivate both him and his younger brother Marty for nearly 50 years until they could take over the hunt themselves. And after more than a decade into their quest, once the garden shaft reconstruction was nearing completion during Season 10, Rick, accompanied by Scott Barlow and Roger Fora, got to make his first descent underground in the money pit area. Since evidence of gold was detected in the garden shaft during its reconstruction, once it was completed to a depth of 82 feet, Marty got his first chance to experience what he had only read about as a child. The Onslow employees next excavated through a level platform or an unidentified vault structure, but they had to stop when the shaft flooded. Significantly, it has been hypothesized by the Oak Island crew that the laborers may have discovered the treasure vault. The team believes that the gold may have been brought to the money pit throughout the course of the dig, and will continue to pursue the progress aspiration to one day stumble upon Marie Antoinette's jewels, or the Ark of the Covenant. But all they ended up finding so far was an intricate network of wooden tunnels. These tunnels date back to the 15th century with a new scanning tool called ground-penetrating radar. They were excavating in Smith's Cove, an area of the island believed to be the treasure's location, when they found a large stone slab buried 10 feet under the ground with strange symbols of 1 inch carved into it. The slab weighs around 1,000 pounds and is composed of limestone and about 3 feet broad, 2 feet tall, and 6 inches thick. The Lagena brothers sought professional aid for interpretation because they thought the symbols on the slab had some significance despite being unintelligible. Sadly, thus far, their efforts haven't been fruitful. This is the first significant discovery in the area since they started looking in 2015. The brothers are relentlessly digging in the region in the hopes of finding further leads, since they are persuaded that the slab may contain a hint as to the whereabouts of the riches. Besides the stone slab, they have also discovered several other priceless things at Smith's Cove, including coins, wooden planks, and beams, among other artifacts, over the years. But that's not all. The brothers claim that these discoveries show a sophisticated flood control mechanism was in place to safeguard the jewels, bringing them one step closer to finding the treasure buried on Oak Island. And this time, they go on many different terrain and paths. On June 14, 2023, the team discovered a broken piece of old metal, adding more confusion in this decade-old treasure hunt. The metal has a diameter of approximately 1 inch and is about ½ an inch thick. It is made of a copper alloy and has an illegible raised pattern on one side that shows a face or human form. According to the brothers, this metal object was part of a coin made in the 17th century, which is a significant hint that Oak Island's treasures were hidden there then. Although unclear, the experts think it to be a chunk of money. Who knows? On top of that, they struggle to explain the meaning of the coin's design. This metal chunk is the second most significant discovery in the area, which signifies yet another crucial development in the ongoing search for Oak Island's treasures. The lads continue to scan the environment intently in search of fresh cues. To them, the design appeared as an ambiguous face of a human. The metal item that was unexpectedly found 12 feet below the surface weighs barely 0.5 ounces. Moving on with the discoveries, on June 21, 2023, the Lagena brothers made another important discovery, an unusual little piece of wood. It was initially built from oak, which has a remarkable texture. According to the Lagena brothers, the wood could have come from a ship buried on Oak Island in the distant past. And this finding in particular is crucial because it adds evidence suggesting a ship buried the wealth on Oak Island, whereas it implies that precious cargo like gold or silver may have been carried by the ship. In an interview, the crew members said the piece of wood was discovered 15 feet below the ground's surface. Days after days, they were excavating in Smith's Cove on the island, which is supposed to be where the treasure is hidden, when they came upon a little ceramic shard that they believed to be from a jug. The ceramic object is 2 inches in diameter and 0.5 inches thick. It was formed of a substance that mimics clay and has a particular pattern on one side. In the pattern, a flower or plant was observed. The Lagena brothers claim the ceramic piece may have come from a jug used to transport wine or other liquids. This would prove that humans were residing on Oak Island in the 17th century, since it would show where the treasure could be buried. They have made several fascinating discoveries in their search, including several Roman artifacts. A lead sword is among the most important Roman artifacts that the Lagena brothers unearthed. And, to everyone's surprise, Smith's Cove is where the sword was located. The sword is assumed to have been There is evidence in Italy linking the Freemasons and the Knights Templar. Amazingly, not many are aware of this. Keep reading to learn more about this peculiar connection. To the north of Rome, approximately 105 kilometers, 65 miles away, is the Italian city of Viterbo, where Rick Lagena and other crew members have traveled. They've scheduled a meeting with author Gianluca Di Prospero, who has spent more than 20 years looking into the Templars' activity in this area throughout the Middle Ages. When Rome was experiencing political unrest in the 7th century, Pope Alexander IV and the Catholic Church temporarily relocated to Viterbo. The city's original site was in Rome. The Templar Order also used the city as a walled fortification during that time. They noticed a cross that had the same 4 spots as the HO stone. These 4-pointed crosses point to significant areas that the Templars historically frequented and that are associated with images of priceless goods. They also noticed the Holy Grail, which is frequently portrayed, and the cross, which serves as a form of emphasis and is sometimes seen in areas connected to either the Holy Grail or the Holy Shroud. It speaks a lot about our hosta if this 4-dot cross is only found in locations connected to the Templars or with Templar-related objects that they may have been defending. In the 1920s, treasure hunters on Oak Island made a surprising find on the northern edge of the island. A large boulder with a number of enigmatic inscriptions on its surface. They had a nagging hunch that it pointed to the site of a hidden treasure, so they exploded it using explosives in order to dig beneath it. Nothing was found beneath the massive boulder. But is it likely that a fragment known as the HO stone, which included a cross surrounded by 4 dots, was a crucial sign that Holy Templar treasures are stashed away on Oak Island? And if so, what could that hint be? If so, might this possibly explain the high concentrations of gold and other metal traces discovered deep into the money pit? Every place they visited seemed to be able to interact with them in some way. They are aware that the Templars used the cross since they came across it in many places, including Portugal and the HO stone. However, there is no question that this is somehow connected to Oak Island. The Latin acronym HIC stands for Here. At the very tip of it was a capital letter A. It had a strange form, but it seemed to be very much like the compass and the line. One of the group members thinks it refers to a compass, and if you look hard, you might even be able to make out a square. It's conceivable that it is a Masonic symbol, which would be odd in a church as old and prominent as this one in Viterbo. But it's also conceivable. A medieval chapel with connections to the Knights Templar is thought to have a Masonic compass engraved into its wall. Many people believe that the mystery group known as the Freemasons descended from the Templars after the Catholic Church banned the Templar Order in the 14th century. The money pit has been the focus of considerable study since its discovery in 1795 by a number of professional treasure-seeking organizations, the bulk of which have Freemasons among their membership. These businesses have all made an effort to figure out the money pit's location's mystery. Masonic symbols like triangles, crosses, and the letter G, which all symbolize for the all-powerful Creator, are all over the island. These images can be found anywhere. Is it possible that Alex Lagena has now uncovered new evidence proving the affiliation between these two groups? Does that also explain what the Freemasons have been searching for on Oak Island for nearly 200 years, assuming that is the case? The Knights Templar is a fraternal organization with ties to Freemasonry that is made up of the United Religious, Military, and Masonic Orders of the Temple and of St. John of Jerusalem, Palestine, Rhodes, and Malta. The Knights Templar is one of several additional Masonic orders in which membership is restricted to Freemasons who profess a belief in Christianity. This is in contrast to the initial degrees that are conferred in a regular Masonic lodge. which, in the majority of regular Masonic jurisdictions, only require a belief in a supreme being regardless of religious affiliation. This is so because King Solomon, a follower of Jesus Christ, formed the Knights Templar. One of the responsibilities that new members of the order are asked to acknowledge upon joining is a commitment to supporting and protecting the Christian religion. Its title contains the word united throughout, implying that this system is governed by the joint efforts of more than one historical tradition and real order. Mainly the Knights of the Temple, also known as the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, the Knights of St. Paul, and the Knights of the Red Cross, although the latter is only applicable to the York Rite, are the different organizations that are deemed to be united under this methodology. The medieval Catholic military order of the same name is where the name of the Masonic organization known as the Knights Templar came from. Similar to how the Masonic Order of Malta drew inspiration from the Sovereign Military Order of Malta and the Masonic Red Cross of Constantine from the Sacred Military Constantinian Order of St. George. However, it does not assert that it is sprung directly from the illustrious Templar Order. The Knights Templar and Freemasonry have a very, very long history of mutual influence. Freemasons built the majority of the commanderies, knights' halls, cathedrals, abbeys, preceptories, and castles connected to the Knights Templar. The magnificent Cathedral Notre Dame de Paris, which was built with the help of active Freemasons, and other significant architectural projects in France received significant financial support from the Knights Templar. The construction of the Eiffel Tower, which was overseen by and included involvement from active Freemasons, also engaged the Knights Templar. Anywhere the Knights Templar created or sponsored the building of those structures, including the Middle East, France, Italy, Portugal, Spain, England, Scotland, and other European